with modern facilities and institutions.
Plugged in.
Basically, what they call it, is maybe, no, no, somebody didn't plug in. These things get to brighten up. Thanks, Mike.
I know what I'm doing.
Yes, you did that time.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, basically all the Chromebook is a browser.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the April 12, 2022 City Council meeting to order. Would everyone please stand while Chief Hauser gives the invocation, followed by Councilman Morris leading the flag salute.
Thank you, Mayor. Please pray with me. So I read from James 3:17. It says, "But the wisdom comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy, good fruit, impartial, and sincere." Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I ask that your word comes true as we do the city's business tonight. We ask that you give the leaders of this city those words that we just read and repeated back for you, Lord, that we be sincere, peace-loving, and just have your wisdom in the decisions that we make. Let's have a peaceful nation and a peaceful city. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Will you join me in the pledge, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll have the roll call, if the clerk would please call the roll.
Okay. Councilmember Brittingham.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Morris.
Here.
Vice Mayor Shear.
Here.
Mayor Groby.
Here, we have a quorum, we're all here. The first item we have is presentations, and it's customary for us to walk down front, so we'll do that again tonight. So all in all, let's head down front. Good evening, I don't think it's on, Brenton. Can y'all hear me? I don't think I have the microphone on, but I got a big enough mouth, I don't need it. First of all, as you all know, every quarter we recognize our employees and their years of service. We have tonight 40 combined years of dedicated service to our city of Durant. We have 3 that have reached that, and 2 are not here tonight. And Rebecca Yeager, 911 Communications, she's been with the city 5 years. Timothy Henson Parks has been with us for 15 years. And Royce Brandon Hicks, Parks Department, he is here tonight. And Royce has been 10 years, and no, he's not here, right? Sorry. But we do have 2 10-year. Royce Hendricks, Parks Department, who is not here, and Philip Walston Landfill, who is here. Philip, would you please come forward? And I know we got something for you, some money or something. So, she's got the money. He gets a certificate, and I don't know how much money he gets.
10 years?
Yeah.
$100.
That's it. We'll all head back up front. Thank y'all so much. There's also a proclamation tonight recognizing April 2022 as Fair Housing Month. So, for all concerned, this is Fair Housing Month. Right now, we have the section of citizen comments and citizens wishing to address the council regarding matters which are not listed on the agenda will be required to sign up. We have no one who signed up. So we will move on to our order of business, consent items A through E. We can accept them all as one item, or they can be pulled out separate. What is the council's pleasure?
I'll motion we approve all consent items.
We have a motion to approve all consent items. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote? Yeah. I don't have a computer. Okay. Yes. Yes. I'm not up there, but I did vote. I'll just raise my hand. How do we do that? Please bear with us, we're having technical difficulties. Okay, motion passes. Number 3 is information items. These are the reports from the different departments. I'm not going to go over any of them, but I would encourage anyone who can to read these. They're very informative. Number 4, administration. discussion, consideration, and possible acceptance of fiscal year 2020 through 2021 annual financial statements and independent auditor's report, including single audit report. Is this Mr. Winkler?
Yes.
Miss-
Mr. Jake Winkler, he's a CPA from the Arledge Associates. He's here to presenting and discuss if our annual financial statement and an auditor report and a single audit report. It's a fiscal year 2020 to 2021.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Mr. Winkler?
Thank you all for having me. Thank you for choosing Arledge to have the privilege of serving the city of Durant. Number one thing I actually want to say is I want to compliment Anchen. She was amazingly responsive to our requests. Information she provided was always, it always agreed to what we needed to have provided. We did not have to have a lot of back and forth with her. She did a fantastic, fantastic job working with us this year, and the city's very lucky to have her. You have 4 reports in front of you. You have the audit report, you have the single audit report, you have a communication with those charged with governance, and then you also have an agreed upon procedures report. The first report that we actually are going to cover is the audit report itself. This is, I feel like I probably say this quite a bit out here, but this is a no news is good news kind of audit. We don't have any findings, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, nothing really to report. You do have an unmodified opinion on your financial statements. That is the best opinion that we can give. Essentially, that means that we believe that your financial statements are free of material misstatements and they are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. There was no new accounting standards that were adopted this year, so the disclosures and everything that you're going to see, the financial statements, they're going to look relatively similar to what you saw in previous periods. So there's not going to be a lot of, for consistency's sake, it's going to look pretty similar. So in terms of going through the footnotes, the actual balances of the financial statements, I don't have any audit adjustments that we had to make. So the decisions that the council was making throughout the year based upon budgeted financials and what was presented to you was accurate. And that allows you to make good decisions with good information. So don't really feel a need, unless you guys really want me to go over the operations of the city. I figure you guys do that every meeting anyway. So we can kind of skip that part. But if you do want that information, starting on page 8, that is management's discussion and analysis. That gives a good overview of the operations of the city for the year. If you guys have any questions on the audit report, I am happy to cover those.
Anyone have any questions?
Before I move to the next report. Okay, I'll go ahead and start with the single audit report. This is your report related to your federal grant money. Any entity that expends more than $750,000 in federal award money during the year has to undergo a single audit in accordance with the uniform guidance. This year, we had 3 programs that we tested. If you look on page, let's see, it would be page, I think, 9. This is a schedule of findings and question costs. This shows the programs that we actually tested at the city. The 3 programs were the Investment for Public Works and Economic Facilities, the Water Smart Grant, as well as the Coronavirus Relief Fund. Once again, I'm pleased to report I have no findings, no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses, nothing to report in relation to the single audit. Again, this is the CARES Act money, the Coronavirus Relief Fund. There's some complicated stuff there. It's a new grant. There's no experience. Anchen handled it very well. The city handled it very well. The reporting requirements were all met. No issues to report. Great job there. So there are 2 opinions in relation to this. There is an opinion related to the uniform guidance, which is more of a compliance test opinion. And then there is also one that we call the Yellow Book opinion, which is the report on internal control over financial reporting in relation to government auditing standards. Again, both of those opinions are clean. They are not modified. There's nothing to report on those. So If anybody has any questions on the single audit report, I'm happy to answer those. I'll continue on. So the next one is the agreed upon procedures report. This is a report that we actually do related to the application to qualify under the local government financial test to provide the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality with certain assurances for the closure and post-closure costs associated with the city's landfill. Again, another unmodified opinion. The amounts are reported correctly. We have no issues on that report. The last report that we have is just our communications with those charged with governance. Again, no new standards were implemented during the year. We did look at certain estimates in the financial statements, no indications of any management bias in relation to those estimates. Those estimates related to the uncollectible accounts receivable, the pension assets, deferred inflows and outflows and the like, as well as self-insurance reserves, which are based on estimates provided by the city's third-party administrator. No issues there, no indications of bias, no adjustments that had to be made. We did not encounter any difficulties in performing the audit. We did not have any disagreements with management. We do have consultations with other accountants that we were aware of. That was consultations with Crawford and Associates with the assistance of preparing the financial statements. And we have no other audit findings or issues that we need to report. So again, no news is good news. City did a great job. Onchen did a great job. With that, I can entertain any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Number 4B, discussion, consideration, and possible action on, I guess we need to accept. Okay. All right, we need to have a discussion. If there's no discussion, we need a motion to accept the auditor's report.
I make a motion to accept the fiscal year 2020-2021 annual financial statements and independent auditor's report, including the single audit report.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Would the clerk please record the vote? Yes. Motion passes. Number 4B, discussion, consideration, and possible action on ordinance O-2022-10 or 10, amending Title III, Administration, Section 32.105, composition, appointment, and terms of members, and declaring an emergency. Open for discussion. Who wanted to discuss this? James?
I'm sorry, Mayor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Dalton.
How are you? This is with our airport board. As you know, those are appointed by yourself as the mayor. We've had one position that was designated for law enforcement only, and that was some time back when we had both an OHP aircraft and pilot stationed here, and then we also had Sheriff's Office helicopter and fixed wing aircraft stationed here as well. At that time, they had a position on the board since we wanted them to be represented. We do not have any law enforcement aircraft stationed here now, nor do we anticipate having any here at this particular time, so we'd like to take that designation away and make that a general designation so that we can fill that with someone from the community.
Is there any discussion? Basically, James, this means that just we can, any citizen, and it doesn't have to be law enforcement.
That is correct. Before, it had to be a law enforcement position, so it's just clearing up that so we can use that position.
Is there any discussion? The chair calls for a motion.
I move we approve ordinance 0-2022-10, amending Title III Administration, Section 32.105, composition.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Call for the vote. Yes. Motion passes. Do we have a motion declaring an emergency?
Make a motion to declare an emergency at Section 2.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Call for the vote. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 4C, discussion, consideration, and possible action on ordinance O-2022-12 or 12 regarding an amendment to the City of Durant Plan adopting the revised and restated OKMRF Master Defined Contribution Retirement Plan and declaring an emergency. Ms. Kara?
Our retirement system, OKMRF, is required to have their master plans reviewed by the IRS every few years. The most recent review did result in some language changes, and because of that, OKMRF has requested that all of their member cities adopt the attached ordinance and joinder so that those changes can be reflected in our plan document. I did include a summary of the changes. If you had a chance to review it, you'd see it was primarily just clarification in some sections or removing sections that referenced IRS code that no longer applies. It doesn't affect the purpose, the function, or the financing of the plan. It's strictly for compliance with IRS code.
Is there any discussion? The chair calls for the vote, calls for a motion.
Make a motion to approve ordinance O-2022-12, amending the city's OKMRF Master Defined Contribution Retirement Plan sections 1 through 6.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Call for the vote. Motion passes. Do we have a motion declaring an emergency on ordinance O-2022-12?
Make a motion declaring an emergency for section 7.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Call for the vote. Most, is that almost different? Motion passes. 4D, discussion, consideration, and possible action on ordinance O-2022-13 regarding an amendment to the City of Durant CMO plan adopting the revised and restated OKMRF Master Defined Contribution Retirement Plan and declaring an emergency.
This is the same thing as just for the CMO plan, which is also a defined contribution plan.
Any discussion? If not, chair calls for the motion.
Make a motion to approve ordinance O 2022-13, amending the CMO plan sections 1 through 6.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, call for the vote. Motion passes. We need a motion for declaring an emergency.
Make a motion to approve section 7, the emergency clause.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, call for the vote.
Thank you.
Is that the vote, or did it, is that it, or is that the last one? Thank you, Ms. Carey. Okay, 4E, discussion, consideration, and possible action on award of bid for 2022 street improvement project, Commercial Lane. Mr. Phillip.
Yes, ma'am. This is to redo Commercial Lane, which is a gravel road now. We're gonna do it with concrete. We had one bidder on the project, and Cindy, what was the price? My bid sheet doesn't have it.
$460,247.50.
I got the 460,000.
It's $460,247.50.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
How many feet is that
How many feet?
approximately?
1,345, I believe. I have it. 1,382, I'm sorry.
That was including curbing as well.
Yes,
And if I read your packet, we're going to have to rebid Peppermint.
yes, it's not at the proper width.
I guess my question would be, since we only had one bid on this and we have to rebid Peppernut anyway, do we have to accept this with this? I mean, it's a pretty significant amount of money without any competition.
It's because it's concrete.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
understand
mean-
that. That's just a question.
That's just a gravel road, is,
I mean,
Yes.
the
Yes.
council certainly has the option of rejecting the bid. You don't have to accept it. I mean, there's nothing to compare it to, but
Right.
the council certainly has the option of accepting or denying.
Just a question.
any further discussion? Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the bid for street improvement on Commercial Lane in the amount of $460,247.50 to J&L Paving LLC.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, call for the vote. Yes. Motion passes. 4F, still here?
Still here.
Okay. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on street striping by Action Safety Supply Company LLC for the estimated amount of $215,443.64. Mr. Phillip again.
It's just a list of streets here in town that needs to be restriped. This was on a state contract, so we didn't have to go out to bid it. I think we need to do it. It's our streets are, we need to.
Definitely. Any discussion? Call for a motion?
I move we approve Action Safety Supply Company LLC to stripe our streets for $215,443.64.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Please record the vote. Motion passes.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Phillip. Item number 4G, discussion, consideration, and possible action on a preliminary plat request for property located near Kale Switch Road and Orchard Road, PC-2022-03.
Good evening.
Ms. Danielle.
This is a preliminary plat request as stated. The applicant is wanting to place 28 half-acre lots, and there's triplexes per each, one triplex per each lot. Their area is served by World Water, and then they're going to have a septic tank with aerobic treatment system for the sewer. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this, providing they will have to get a stormwater permit and a couple other stipulations in there. And then this, again, this is just a preliminary plat, so there's gonna be some more engineering and things that'll have to come if the plat is approved. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and I think there's a representative here that could also answer some questions as well.
Anyone have any questions? The stipulations will be included in the.
Yes.
Any discussion? Any comments?
Thank you. I'm Brian Danker. I'm Senior Executive Officer of Legal and Compliance for the Choctaw Nation. And we did appear at the Planning Commission and voice some of our concerns. And I do have to say that the developers did reach out to us, and I believe we'll be able to work to resolve those. But I want to make the council aware just of some of our concerns on this project. As you know, this project is adjacent to our $80 million cultural center that was completed and opened back in 2001 and or 2021. And we had a couple of issues with that. One, at the Planning Commission, we'd ask basically when the comprehensive plan was last updated, and it indicated that it was updated, I believe it was September of 2021, after completion of our cultural center. But our cultural center was not taken into account on the completion of that comprehensive plan, and we believe that that should be amended, that center should be included, given the tourists that will generate, the potential commercial development around that area, and then also just the significant investment that was made on that property. Another issue that we had was on the rezoning of this property. We did not find where we ever received any notice that that property was to be rezoned. We would have certainly shown up and voiced our concerns at that time. Not saying that notice wasn't sent, we just never, we could not locate it, and no one was aware of the rezoning. As far as our concerns about the specific development, when you move past that, is just really visually, we'd like to see some fencing and maybe possible to put up a berm or something along those lines, but just something to visually separate that facility from the cultural center. And then also we're concerned about security, possible need for fencing around that area, just to ensure that children aren't tempted to come on that property and those type of things. And then, let's see, the other thing we're concerned about was, of course, the drainage. I know there's some issues on some stipulations on some of the water issues. And, I have to say that I did go out and look at their other property, their other development over by the church. And David Burge had indicated they'd been easy to work with as far as resolving any concerns. And so we hope, certainly hope that that'll be the case here. And like I said, they have reached out to us and indicated a willingness to try to work towards those. But we do want to make the council aware of those concerns, for that area. And again, we have a substantial tourist destination in that area, and I just want to make sure that that's taken into consideration. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Danielle?
Yes.
I think somebody else. Someone else, you want to come forward, please?
everyone. I'm owner. My name is Henry Wu, and I is this project owner. And last time we did answer all their comments and in very positive way. We used the same the engineer firm, Van Barkers. So they bring concern about traffic. I think the engineer will consider that. And also the drainage issue, we will sacrifice some lots for retention pond. And for the privacy, we will budget our project to make it have a fence to keep a community private, also separate with a new culture center. And I did send email to this gentleman last week, and we will cooperate in the future. Any question they have, we will very positive address that. Yeah. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So, does that mean the two parties are going to be able to work their differences, or?
It sounds like it based on what I'm hearing. I did look at the fencing requirements. There is no requirement for fencing, so if they're willing to do that, then that is certainly their prerogative. This was rezoned in January of 2021 by City Council. It went through Planning Commission. It would have been December of 2020. As far as the engineering and the drainage and all that, the ordinances do require that, well, they're going to have a drainage study shown, and it requires that they cannot have any more water that's draining off the property than what it currently is. And with the comprehensive plan, back when it was about done, staff had a communication with some members of the Choctaw Nation, and it was their understanding at that time that there was going to be a long-term study done by the Choctaw Nation as well, and there was not much communication at that time. But the comprehensive plan was definitely put out to the public and was just about everywhere that it could have been, and as much as possibly done to get involvement from the general public was done. So, but if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Since this is a preliminary plat, and obviously I was at the Planning Commission and realized there were concerns about the Choctaw Nation, it appears that maybe those concerns are going to be worked out. Is there anything that can be implemented into the process here forward to give some type of assurances?
I believe you could probably have like a contingency type of thing within your vote, where you could have this is approved contingent upon certain things. The fencing, with it not being required by ordinance, may not be something that can be done, unless the legal has a different opinion on that. But I don't believe that would be something that would be enforceable. But the city council does have the right to have certain contingencies on a vote like this.
I just want to say I do appreciate the two parties meeting after that discussion last week and trying to work this out, and I think that's very
Definitely.
for both of you.
It's definitely positive.
It sounds like they've worked out most everything except maybe the fencing. Is that the?
Probably fencing and drainage is probably going to be the two, that's the biggest concerns, it appears. But the drainage will be, Barker's done a lot of work in town, and I have no doubt that they're going to make sure that it's done and done right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Call for a motion.
I think one thing that might be important also is that this is a preliminary plat. This is something the council will see again. So this is just the preliminary plat, and it seems like, according to staff, the applicants checked all the boxes for approval of the preliminary. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Call for a motion. Last call. Motion.
My motion, we approve the preliminary plat request for the property located near Kel Switch Road and Orchard Road.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Call for the vote. Motion passes. Number 4H, discussion, consideration, and possible action on a replat request for property located near North Fourth Avenue and Willow Street, PC-2022-05.
This replat request is to join two lots together. It's near the intersection of Fourth and Willow. It's a couple lots up from Willow Street on Fourth. The current lots are about 25 foot wide and therefore are not buildable at all due to the requirements of the ordinances. The lots put together will be just under 50 feet. Therefore, the applicant will have to go through the Board of Adjustment to gain a variance for the lot being still under their current size, but he is making that strive to make it a lot that's buildable. According to the house plans that was submitted, it's gonna be a single-family home. It will fit on the lot with the setbacks and all that, so he'll only have to need that variance for the actual lot width. The Planning Commission approved this contingent upon the Board of Adjustment approving the variance. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and the applicant is also here if you have any questions for him.
Any questions? Discussion?
Does any motion made here tonight also need to include that securing the variance from the board?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Call for the motion.
I move we approve PC 2022-05, the replat request. I might add, I grew up across the street from that, and I'm fully okay with the need for that,
Contingent.
contingent upon the Board of Adjustment approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Call for the vote. Motion passes. 4I, discussion, consideration, and possible action on ordinance O-2022-11, a rezoning request from A1 General Agriculture District to CO Professional and Business Offices District for property located at 3202 West University Boulevard, PC-2022-08.
It's a mouthful.
It is.
The applicants did originally apply for the C2 zoning, but with the lot width not meeting that C2 requirement, Planning Commission and applicant agreed upon the CO. So that's in case you watch the Planning Commission and seeing the difference, that kind of is the difference in why. But they are anticipating putting having an office building there, and it'll meet all the parking requirements and all that. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The Planning Commission, again, did recommend the rezoning to CO, and the applicant's also here if you have any questions for him.
Any discussion? Any questions? Call for a motion.
Make a motion to approve ordinance O-2022-11 rezoning request for the property located at 3202 West University Boulevard, PC 2022-08.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Call for the vote. Motion passes. 4J.
There's an emergency clause too. There's a section 2.
Make a motion to approve section 2, the emergency
I didn't
clause.
see section 2.
I didn't either. It's not on the agenda.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Okay. Call for the vote. Is that it, Cindy? Is that the vote for this one? For the, okay, 4. J. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on Resolution R-2022-03, a conditional use permit to place a billboard sign on property located at 4516 West Main Street, PC 2022-09. Ms. Danielle again.
Yes, it's been a busy month. We had an applicant come forward wanting to place a billboard on the property. They will need to get a city building permit, but the resolution is for the conditional use permit. The reason that we're coming for a conditional use permit is the ordinances require any billboard that's within the highway overlay district to come before you guys for a conditional use permit for approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this item, and the applicant is also here if you have any questions for him.
Any questions, any discussion? Call for a motion.
Motion to approve Resolution R-2022-03, a conditional use permit placing a billboard sign on property located at 4516 West Main Street, PC 2022-09.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Call for the vote. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 5, new business. No new business. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion adjourned.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Or we had 2 motions, actually. Call for the vote. Motion passes. It is now 6. Okay, sorry, getting ahead of her. Is that it? I can't tell when they change.
Which one?
We are adjourned out of the city council. And we're waiting to. You need to put that thing in high gear. You need to put that in high gear. Dan, Joan, she said you need to join.
Utilities?
No, yes, that's all. Yes, you can. Ready? Oh, okay. It's me now, Danny. They joining me, I can't. Okay. Okay, let the record show, it is now 6:40 and the Durant City Utilities Authority is now in session. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Trustee Brittingham.
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Morris.
Here.
Vice Chairman Shear.
Here.
Chairman Groby.
Here. We do have a quorum. Under consent items, number A, consider approval of regular meeting minutes of March 8th, 2022. Do we have a motion to approve the March meeting minutes?
Motion to approve consent item.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Call for the vote. Motion passes. Number 3, information items, which I encourage everyone to read. Number 4, administration, nothing under there, no new business. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll motion we adjourn.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Call for the vote. You still 6:40, isn't it? Motion passes, we adjourned out of the Durant Utilities Authority. Okay.
What are we doing? Airport?
Ready? Danny? Okay, it is now 6:51 and the Durant Airport Authority is now in session. We'll call to order, roll call. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Trustee Brittingham.
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Morris.
Here.
Vice Chairman Shear.
Here.
Chairman Groby.
Here. Order of business. Under consent items, we have one item, number A, consider approval of regular meeting minutes of March 8, 2022. Do we have a motion on the consent item to approve?
I'll motion we approve consent items.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Call for the vote. Motion passes. Consider, we don't have any items removed, information items. A, Airport Manager Monthly Report, March 2022. Hello, Mr. John.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. I'm excited. The state of aviation is great right now. I think I just come back from a conference and we found out that post-COVID, nationwide, aerospace is building up in incredible numbers. I think if you look at our report, we had a pretty good month. It's another record month. So everything's going good at the airport. Our fuel cells are really great. If you look at our information items, our old tank, 100 low lead tank, will be removed this week if weather doesn't prohibit. We also have had some discussion of what to do with the concrete cavity that's going to be left behind, whether it could be utilized or covered up or whatever. So we may have to get some community involvement and city manager involvement, everybody. I don't think it's feasible to use it. I think it costs more money than, you know, what you can cover it up and put in storm cellar. If you want to do that, a lot cheaper, but we have one storm cellar already. But I hate to see something go to waste, so maybe some people can look at that. We have some companies looking at us. We've got a skydiving company, really excited about wanting to look at Durant. We've got a glider service company that is actively working on their glider certifications. That will be something that the public can come and enjoy to pay for not only just glider flights, but being certified as a glider pilot or a glider instructor. And I anticipate that sometime this year. Mr. Meredith is here. I haven't talked to him yet, but I'm excited about what the Durant High School has done. They are now one of over 50 schools in the state of Oklahoma, which makes us now #1 in the nation. We just heard that today. And that's a real credit to the public school systems. They have a AOPA I hope I'm not taking your thunder. Okay, they have an AOPA aviation program now at the high school. I've spoken with Ms. Condit. We're going to partner with the Durant High School and the college and work on field trips, scholarships, and just take this program and soar. I think it's going to be an awesome program for our community. And as a matter of procedure, I would like to know, I've been out of town a couple of days. Did a lease, or not a lease, but a contract for service for our weather station get put on the agenda? I never could see it if it didn't get put on there. We had an emergency this last month. And can I even talk about what the emergency was with the, we've lost the contract for the AWAS system. Is that okay if I get into that? It's, okay, I'm not sure. Okay, well, I'll give you the report then.
You've mentioned it in the
Okay.
project status, so.
Okay. Mr. Cousins has gotten extremely old, and he's been taking care of our weather station for a long, long time. The FAA has been following him around to the sites, and luckily, a new company has decided to purchase the contract from Mr. Cousins for his service career to end, and then I will be presenting a new service contract to the council or airport authority for approval once it's on the agenda. But it's not going to slow down what we've got going on right now. Is that okay?
The amount, the dollar amount.
The last, I think I have a copy of it. I think it's going up $25 a month.
It's within our authority to approve.
Okay. I think it's, let me find it just to make sure. I think it's going up to $275 a month. Mr. Pappas was being very kind with the whole situation, making sure that we're not going to fail our FAA inspections, and he's also wanting to take care of Mr. Cousins. And I would also like to express my gratitude for him, because he spent a lot of time with this system over the years trying to keep it manageable and working, considering it's a pretty old system. So in the future, we probably be looking at an upgrade, but I don't have his contract with me at this time. But I did want to make it known to you that that's something we're going to be working on. And if anybody has any questions about the fuel cells or what went on last month or anything, I'm available.
Just keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
John, I had a question. On the items we voted on last month, where are we at on those as far as the pay and all your help that we're supposed to be getting you and everything?
I have been allowed to add the one full-time employee. I switched to part-time to the full-time, and then now I'm waiting to the next budget period.
Okay.
There have been no raises.
Did you change, you turned in all the change orders and everything already?
I did.
Okay. So, I guess, so there hasn't been any raises or anything done in that matter, right? I mean, yet?
No, sir.
Have you been able to utilize the DIA's administrative assistant?
Yes.
Wasn't that part of the deal as well?
Yes. She is actively working with us to try to learn our philosophy. She does a really good job. She's learning how to talk with the pilots, and she's already learning how to bill out some fuel, and she's very busy, but she's doing a great job.
So what we voted on last month, when do we implement that? That might be a question for James more than anybody else. James, what we voted on last month, when do we implement that? I mean,
You voted on the position approvals,
yes,
and we have had HR soliciting for those positions.
okay.
We are taking applications, and I think is Carrie still with us? How many have we got so far? Carrie, do you remember?
Could you come up here?
We're in the process trying to fill the positions.
Okay.
The situation that you guys voted on was to fill the positions.
We didn't have there wasn't a change order for his,
Those
Pay.
salaries go back to our comprehensive plan that you guys approved as a council for all department heads, each grade, and they were not in that comprehensive plan. if we approve those salaries as was posted there, we're going to be paying department head at the airport over what we pay a fire chief and many other department heads. And if we're going to have to do that, we need to go back and amend that plan as a whole, not just, we just can't jump out there and take him out of the
So
plan.
what did we approve last month then?
The positions.
The positions.
That's all? There
Yes,
wasn't a
sir.
pay increase or anything
No, sir.
approved in that? Okay.
And we are seeking the applicants.
Any other questions?
Did you have something you wanted to add, city manager?
No, sir, James covered it.
That it? Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's nothing under administration. Number 5, new business, no new business. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
I'll motion we adjourn.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Motion and a second. Call for the vote. Motion passes. We are adjourned out of the airport authority. It is now, sorry, I get ahead of us. Ready? Danny? All in? Okay, it is now looks like 7:04, and the Durant Development Authority is now in session. Roll call, please.
Trustee Brittingham.
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Morris.
Here.
Vice Chairman Shear.
Here.
Chairman Groby.
Here. Consent items, number 1A, consider approval of regular meeting minutes of January the 11th, 2022. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes under consent item?
I'll motion we approve the regular meeting minutes, January 11th, 2022.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, call for the vote. Motion passes. We'll skip down with no information items. Number 4, under administration, 4A, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the administration of the 5/8 cent sales tax for the Independent School District Number 72, Durant Public Schools High School project.
Well, as you know, in January, I was directed to continue researching and develop possible, if there were any solutions to rectify the issues with the way the sales tax is financed. The ordinance 1589 is specific in outlining that any financing would be done through a beneficiary of the city, and that has not been done. I talked to bond counsel at depth. The bonds that were refinanced in 2020 can be refinanced through the Development Authority. However, that would not be a prudent move because the bonds cannot be called until 2030. So the city would be responsible for that tax, for the interest for those bonds, plus the refinancing bonds. So what we can do to come in as close of to rectify the situation as best we can is develop a budget from the Development Authority, which was, the Development Authority was created to be the financing and administrative authority for that. That was done through ordinance, and it was done through multiple resolutions. One, creating the authority, and then two, at later dates, identifying specifically that that's what the authority would do, would be the administrative arm for that sales tax. So by staff creating a budget for the Development Authority, we meet that requirement of what's been outlined by previous council. So
I have a question on that, for whatever reason, I've not been in the loop on this, so I may be asking questions that everybody else knows the answer to, but what monies are sought to be budgeted by the Development Authority? Or is it the tax proceeds?
yes, sir. Just the tax proceeds.
Okay, so just to be clear, just to be upfront, I was on the council when this matter was passed as a council member, not as legal counsel. So I want to be upfront about that. To say I remember very much would not be true, so as is most of the case. But I think where I would maybe take issue that the Development Authority has the authority to budget anything with regard to the 5/8 cents sales tax. Certainly the ordinance 1589 has that language in it, and certainly an interpretation of that is that, well, not an interpretation, the authority has the responsibility to administer the funds. What that means may be up to some interpretation. But in an effort to clarify that, there was a declaratory judgment action filed across the street in the district court following the passage of ordinance 1589. And that question was addressed. And the district court judge, in reviewing the language and issuing a ruling, not an opinion, it's a district court ruling, said that the city and the authority was a pass-through entity. And so there is, based on the district court's ruling, I don't believe that the authority or the city has any responsibility or obligation to do anything other than receive the money as it's collected and pass through to the school district. Now, the school district is obligated to spend the money pursuant to the terms of the ordinance 1589 and the ballot measure that accompanied it. And I think the Development Authority has the obligation to ensure that that is occurring, whether that's through a review of audits or a request for information, but to make any determinations how that money is spent is in direct conflict with the court's ruling subsequent to the passage of this matter. And I can read from that, but with regard to, let me see if I can find the, so the district court judge said that the revenues create no obligation on the part of the city other than to pass through the revenues through to the district or its assignee, all as provided in the sales tax agreement. There was also a sales tax agreement that was entered into by the city and the school district and adopted by the council. And the terms of that sales tax agreement are profoundly clear in how those monies are to be handled, and they are to be passed through. So I don't think it's appropriate based on, we don't have to interpret here what was meant in the ordinance. The district court's already done that. And the district court said that this body is a pass-through entity. That may not be a popular, and it's not my opinion. It's not an opinion at all. It's a district court ruling. And that may not be a popular ruling with some people, but it's already been made. And there's an agreement between the city and the school district reflecting those terms that's been adopted as a contract, and it's C 2008-53. So I don't know how much wiggle room this body has to go back and change the terms. They can question the expenditures and seek information from the school district to make sure the expenditures are being done pursuant to Ordinance 1589 and the accompanying ballot measure. This body can be critical of those expenditures and say maybe they weren't done efficiently, or maybe they spent it on A, B, and C when this body thought it should have been X, Y, and Z. But as long as those expenditures comply with the terms of 1589, I think passing the proceeds of the sales tax through to the city to make to the school to make those expenditures is the only administration that this board can do, pursuant to the court's ruling that it's already made.
Who's responsible if if they're not made, if the payments aren't made?
If what payments?
If the payments that the school doesn't make the payments, who's responsible?
To the lender?
Right.
The school. This body has no responsibility to pay the lender directly. Now, if the
that wasn't the idea, Tom. The idea was that if the Development Authority create a budget, just like the money's coming into the debt service fund or whatever the fund is that it's coming in now to, is if it just came into the authority and the authority passed that money directly on to the school. Just like no change to what's happening other than.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a one-line budget. We get $1, we pass $1 through.
Correct.
And if that's what the Development Authority wants to do, there's probably nothing that would prevent that as long as it doesn't in any way inhibit the pass-through nature of the funds.
That wasn't the intent at all. So.
I guess a couple of things. I mean, you actually put in your memorandum to summarize that the last line talking about the sales tax agreement that Tom was just talking about. It says basically it transferred all administration of the 5/8 cent sales tax to the school district, taking us out of the equation completely. Obviously, everybody's aware we're 14 years late to the game. The building's been built. We can't administer any funds and know how they're spent because it's done. All that's going to come in is the sales tax. It gets deposited. They pay the bond. It's done. They pay the full amount. My understanding, the school is audited on an annual basis, and that's part of the audit process, is that show that the money that we sent them, that they deposited that full amount, and that full amount went to the bond. I'm just not really sure why we would even go through a process of creating any type of budget at this point.
Yeah, there's certainly a possibility, and I don't know if this is the case at all, and I'm sure there are people that do. There's certainly a possibility that if sales tax collections exceeded projections, there could be more funds available than that necessary to sink those bonds. But as long as the district spends that revenue pursuant to the terms of of Ordinance 1589, good for them for getting more money. There's nothing that, and I don't think that's the intent here, is for this body to redirect that money, but there's nothing this body could do with that even if they wanted to.
Do I understand that that money is specifically for that building alone, and building construction and any maintenance to follow?
I don't know
that that's for the school district, or?
There is some language in Ordinance 1589 and the bond measure that I think probably allows a little bit of flexibility because it's for the high school, but then also some improvements within the district associated with that. So I think it provides some flexibility beyond just the four walls of the high school building.
I wanted to clarify one thing. And looking at this, and I know there's been a ton of discussion since this has come up, this is similar to what the city is doing for the 2/4 cent sales tax. The only difference is, I mean, we're spending the money and we're administering the money. I guess the question I have, because it says this lists the city as the beneficiary, right? Trust administers it, whoever that trust is, and the city is the beneficiary. But at the end of the day, if there's money left in the coffer for whatever reason, that the tax revenue continues to increase, that money goes to the school in this scenario, right? It does not come back to the city.
That's correct.
That's correct.
I just wanted to clarify that I was understanding that correctly.
I believe that to be so, yes.
And we couldn't take that money and spend it anyplace else, could we? As long as it is.
Not a penny.
So what would a budget look like in your mind? I mean,
It would basically receive revenue and pass revenue out. It would just be a pass-through, no different than it is now, except it would be in the authority. So,
okay. So if we're creating a budget within the city, based on like all, obviously, we're about to go through the budget process here, based on this. And every entity that we have, that if they have a budget, they're assessed a portion, I think we just had this discussion a week or so ago at DIA. They're assessed a portion of IT fees and audit fees. Would this budget also include those items?
it could. That was discussion when it was created. So, and that's what Mr. Dunnigan said, that it would be done, treated just as the DCFA or any other authority of the city. But that's not ever occurred.
Right, in which I could see that'd be beneficial in the building process when there's a ton of stuff happening and stuff. We're at a point now where all that's done, that there's very limited, I mean, we have, obviously the amount changes based on the sales tax. So the amount going out is based on the sales tax. And I know back when we talked in January, I had asked a specific question about audit fees and stuff. I went back and listened to that meeting again. I guess my issue with that would be if the school is already auditing exactly what we're giving them and what they're spending, why we would spend that money again. And the other issue is why we would be taking any percent for IT fees for that when that money is specifically earmarked for the school. So if the direction was to do a budget of money coming in and money going out, I personally would take issue with those two items at this point, if that's the direction we're going. I just wanted to make that clear. So, could you foresee any other items that would be on that budget?
No, sir.
A proposed budget?
No, sir.
If we did this, it would put us in good standing with 1589, wouldn't it? Or it would have listed.
I think it puts us closer to where the administrative part is done by the Development Authority, so. But I'm okay either way. I just was researching, that's what I was directed to do, and so.
Madam Mayor, I believe you're correct. I believe that on its face, 1589 clearly obligates the city to administer the funds, whatever that means, whether it's whatever that is. Take it from your right hand, put it in your left hand, and hand it to the school. That may be all it is. And because the Development Authority meets and adjourns once a quarter, that's not really administering any funds. I think the court's decision in the declaratory judgment action probably relieves the city of that obligation by just saying it is a pass-through, that the city simply serves as a pass-through. Now, I'm reading something in. Earlier, I wasn't given an opinion, that I was reading court language. I think the court's reading of 1589 and the ruling on it and declaring that the city simply serves as a pass-through to a large degree relieves the authority of any administrative duties. That's arguable. But to the extent that we set a budget to make a record of the monies coming through, that's probably fine. I share Councilman Brittingham's concern if we start, if the authority or the city starts receiving or taking some of that money for administrative purposes, whether it's IT fees or any other fees, probably puts us in a little bit of jeopardy. But To the extent we're taking in $1 and handing off $1, whatever we do administratively, I think is just fine.
I think if we did that, it would look better to the public, personally.
I'd like to ask a question concerning the Development Authority at this point. I understand the intent when it was done, and then obviously 6 months later, the sales tax agreement was entered, and basically the city handed off the administrative duties of the 5/8 cents to the school district. And that bond is or I guess that money is, the money was borrowed and subsequently it was placed into a bond with the Bryan County, I forget what the name is, and now they're administering that bond, that trust, or that authority. But since the Durant Development Authority is directly tied to that original ordinance and the sales tax, obviously it doesn't really serve a purpose now, like it would have in the beginning. You can't do away with that without a vote going back to the people, is that correct?
So the Durant Development Authority really isn't tied to the ordinance.
Or it is
The
not.
ordinance didn't create the authority. The authority was created by the council later and made the city the beneficiary of that authority. I think there's an argument to be made that the authority was never necessary, but it was created in order to be the body that administers those funds. I'm not sure there's anything that would have kept the city council from being the body that administered those funds. So the creation of the authority that made the city the beneficiary was a creation of the council, not a creation of the ordinance.
So is it necessary anymore?
It's as necessary as it ever was. I think it. I think it probably. I think it probably would be difficult to disband it at this time, and it would be just as necessary to do away with it at this point as it would be to create it at this point if it didn't exist. I think if you use the authority to accomplish the purpose that the city manager identified earlier as being the administrative entity that accounted for the monies as they passed through the hands of the city, then you could continue to use that, the DDA to do that. If you disbanded the DDA and used the city or the city council as the body that was the administrative entity, I hadn't thought about that. I'd have to look and see if that was prudent, but I don't know why it wouldn't be doable since it was a creation of the city council to begin with, and it wasn't a creation required by the ordinance.
And you're right, I read in there about the public trust, and this was actually created a month after the sales tax passed.
Right.
That's great. It was just a thought, I mean,
What would
less
it hurt?
government is better, I think.
What would it hurt to keep it? I mean, it's not gonna hurt us, it's not gonna hurt the school, right, John?
No, you're talking about the trust?
Yes, keeping.
No, I mean, if you read the purposes of the
Right.
trust, it's about 2 pages of things that can be done through that trust, if you so chose to. It's the school funding portion of it is 1 paragraph. It's about, well, it's 1 run-on sentence, I guess. So, but I mean, there's,
So what do we gain or lose leaving it the way it is right now?
That's kind of where I'm.
That's where I'm at. I don't see us gaining or losing anything, keeping it
We
the way it
just
is
leave
right
it.
now and just leave it alone.
Are you saying with or without a budget? It's not that simple.
I got you. That was just my question.
That was a follow-up question.
I got you.
Well, I think your biggest complaint, Steve, was about the IT fees and the accounting fees.
It's not necessarily a complaint, it's more
Well, I
a
mean,
concern that,
if we didn't have
money's not
that-
for the education. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, personally, if it was money coming in and money coming out, and that's what we want to do with the budget, and that was the only thing on the budget, I don't see a problem with it.
I just feel
That-
like every cent ought to go to the school district. I don't see any, that's just my opinion.
So if we go in that direction, since the school does an annual audit involving these funds to show what we sent them and what was spent on the bond, which those numbers should be matching 100%, then would there be any reason for us to have to audit anything at that point? I mean, we're not auditing the past 14 years, we're auditing from this point forward.
Right. It is actually a portion of the budget, just like the TIF funds are that come and go through. So it does get audited from that aspect, not as in great detail as the TIF does, but that's similar to the process that it's done now, so.
I was gonna say, it's gotta be fairly easy. We take the money, they send it to us, and then we go deposit it in their account, correct? So it's a pretty easy, number. We should know what they've got and what they're spending, right? From the sales tax?
We know what they got, yes, sir.
Okay.
And they are providing expenditure reports to us now. Mr. Meredith and I talked about that probably a month and a half ago or so. And they did provide us the audit, and they did provide us the semi-annual payment reports. So, and they will do that in the future is what they've agreed to, so, which is what is in the sales tax agreement, is that they would provide us those reports, so.
I've kind of enjoyed having this every month, because I never knew what it was, so now I know what it is. Just So basically, what we're talking about is just using this, letting it be the pass-through, right? Is that?
That's up to the authority, so.
I'm a little confused why we don't do that with the DCFA. Won't these be handled entirely differently in that case?
You mean just?
Like excess funds, the authority decides how they're spent in the DCFA.
Well, I think
Yeah, there's not another entity at the end of the DCFA to take the money and with the.
Honestly, if you had an agreement with Southeastern, it could have probably been done the same way.
If there had been that agreement.
Correct, but there was not.
Yeah, but if there had been that agreement and it was something that was contemplated by the ordinance and the ballot measure, DCFA could have been like that, where it passed it through to some other entity to spend. But it wasn't. But this one was. This one, the ballot measure, contemplated expenditure of the sales tax proceeds by the school. The district court confirmed that and clarified it by saying the city has no other obligations other than passing through. The city doesn't have the obligation to even audit the expenditure of the funds. I think the city has the opportunity to do that or to request a report of the expenditure of the funds, but the city doesn't have the obligations to audit the expenditure of the funds. The court made that profoundly clear. So the school district have no doubt that they're spending it responsibly, but even if they weren't spending it pursuant to Ordinance 1589, that's not this body's responsibility per the terms of the court order. It's not their legal responsibility. They may want to exercise some power to inquire and know how it's being spent and ensure that it's being spent per the ordinance, but they don't have that legal responsibility to do so per the court.
This may be an odd question, but right now, the sales tax is making the payments, we're doing well and everything. What would happen if the sales tax dropped and we couldn't meet the obligations to the school?
The school is obligated at that point to make up that difference. They have to keep a reserve fund of, don't remember exactly, is it $1 million, right at that, Dwayne? So, anyway, the school makes up that difference, not the city. And that was the case early on. So the tax did not cover the debt initially. Yeah.
So do we want to keep the Durant Development Authority? I guess, is that what we're discussing? And what are we discussing, guys?
I have
Come
no
on,
problem
somebody
keeping it.
talk.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me if we keep it or if we looked at
I would
disbanding
like
it.
to
That
s-
doesn't matter to me at all. I mean, I guess is the question on the table, do we need a budget or not? Is that pretty much what you're asking?
Yes, sir.
So,
Will the DDA foreseeably ever have other obligations other than this tax?
no.
It's possible. Like I said, there's 2 pages of purposes that the Development Authority could serve.
And I think we ought to keep it then.
So, I mean, it could be used for economic development, it could be used to fund all types of different community projects. So, I mean, it does serve a purpose, other than, like I said, the school portion is 1 subparagraph, 1 run-on sentence. So, section H, so.
And if we took no action, then we'd just rock along normally, right?
We just continue what we're doing, yes, sir.
Any discussion? What kind of budget would we be looking at?
A budget would just be basically revenue in and revenue out, so, like it is now.
So
Really
this,
just kind of spinning our wheels then, really, right? Just making extra work.
Well, I don't know if it's extra work, sir, but it's, like I said, it would just bring it under the authority, which was why it was created, so. But no real change to what's actually occurring, so.
Why don't we make a budget just so we'll have a record is what I would think would be prudent.
I didn't hear a word you said.
I said, I think it would be prudent to make a budget just so we'd have a little more record of what's going on.
Okay, you want to make a motion?
I'll make that as a motion. Let's create a budget for the DVA based on pass-through.
You want to keep it, that's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear you, sorry. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Can I ask for clarification?
Sure.
On that budget, is it gonna have other fees associated with it, or is it just gonna be money coming in and money going out?
It'll be money coming in and money going out.
That's what I just said, pass-through.
But we'd also just discussed audit fees and IT fees as well. I just wanted to clarify that that's all we were looking at, money coming in, money going out.
Again, yes, sir.
Good enough. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Call for the vote. Motion passes 4-1. Okay, next item, new business. There's no new business. Do we have a motion for adjournment? I know that won't take long.
I'll motion we adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Call for the vote. We're now adjourned. Mr. Meredith, we want to thank you for being here tonight. I didn't get to speak to you, so